This time on Chasing UFOs.
Ain't no kind of aircraft, I'll tell you that. It probably moved 100 miles in a matter of a second.
An intriguing video of an unknown object leads Ryder, Ben, and James to the Colorado Rockies to learn more about this mystery.
We all know we've seen the same thing that day. Something that's not from this planet at all.
But their investigation takes a turn when the team learns that some locals believe these objects are linked with strange, gruesome animal mutilations.
They beam that animal up into the spacecraft, do what they have to, then bring it back and drop it back into that field.
Searching for a connection, the team hears of a mysterious menace that may have its sights on more than just animals.
Their eyes were so blue they were almost violet.
It may also be targeting humans.
James, do you copy?
What's going on, James?
Oh, get the out of here.
Check this out. Rocky Mountains.
I love this range right here.
So beautiful.
We're on our way to Salida, Colorado, just north of the San Luis Valley. This area is a hotbed for UFO activity with reports of sightings going back years. There's a family there that shot one of the most compelling UFO videos we've ever seen.
Okay, well, let's check out the Tim Edwards video that is actually getting us to Colorado here.
Go get the binoculars. It moved over that part of the sky there. It probably moved 500, it probably moved 100 miles in a matter of a second.
So you can kind of see little, what looks like balls kind of rotating around the outside. They're actually talking about it on the video.
See a big one? See it going? Did you see it?
And if you look at Tim Edwards' video closely, the object looks like a tear in the fabric of space. To me, it's amazing footage. Then you can see there's points of reference. There's the roof.
Yeah, this was
there.
an angle of a...
And so you could theoretically differentiate the movement of the craft to the movement of the camera.
There ain't no little airplane that moves 5 miles in 2 seconds.
Sure, it's pretty jerky.
There's something about the video that doesn't add up to me. The movement of the object with respect to the house in frame, with respect to the camera movement, it's not following both the way it should. Something's wrong.
More and more people in the town admitted to having the same sighting. And then, when that got out into the press, we were able to connect the dots and find out that in 4 other states, around the same time, other people were seeing this craft in the air. It's not only a video, it ends up being a mass sighting seen over multiple states.
If it's not a UFO, then what is it? If it is a UFO, then where's it coming from?
Unfortunately, Tim Edwards has since passed, but we've contacted his family, and Brandy, the daughter that you actually hear in the video, she's 6 at the time,
As well as Bob Edwards, Tim's father.
they were willing to talk to us.
Now, didn't your son call you while the...
Oh yes, he called.
They watched it for close to an hour.
How old were you at the time?
I was 6.
You were 6 years old. Do you remember it well?
Yes, I do. We were supposed to go on a camping trip that day, so my father told me to go outside and go see if it was going to rain. So as I went outside, when I was looking up in the sky, I noticed a cigar-shaped object just hovering around. So I went and got my dad. It took him a few moments to realize, what the object was.
There's a spaceship or bigger like that, and it's a spaceship.
Ain't no kind of aircraft, I'll tell you that.
And he went and he filmed it.
God, this looks like it's something going around with it.
But I remember it actually going out and then going back in. It looked like it was kind of growing.
Did you see it?
Erratic as hell.
It was darting from place to place, and the balls were coming out of it.
You keep looking at it, and you can see like a ball going around it.
There ain't no little airplane that moves 5 miles in 2 seconds.
To me, it darted. I mean, it was so fast that you could see it here, you could see it there, here.
Was it like it blinked out in one spot and then reappeared in another, or did it actually move?
It was like in different places.
It's moved more than 5 miles. It's probably moved 100 miles in a matter of a second.
It's very unique, A, to have daytime footage, and B, to have multiple eyewitnesses at the same time. Do you disagree with each other on any points about what you remember seeing?
We all know we've seen the same thing that day. Something that's not, I don't think, from this planet at all.
We come in peace. It's interesting to me that people found out who were in the area investigating UFOs and showed up to tell their stories.
It looked like a giant hotel. Very, very big. Yeah, it's just huge.
I would say it was about a couple school buses big.
Interesting.
I definitely cannot look up at the sky at night the same way as I did before that moment.
This picture is amazing. Was it moving when you shot the picture?
It must have been because it followed along there for about 100 miles. And then I looked up and there were 3 of them.
Clearly, something really amazing is going on here.
After speaking with the Edwards family and some locals, we found out where the most recent UFO sightings were taking place, and we were able to target our investigation. So we're headed west, up into the mountains, to get advantage of the entire area. Unfortunately, getting there is going to be pretty difficult, so I've arranged some alternative transportation.
Cut.
I think we're gonna have to hike in from here.
I've never been on a field trek like this.
No woman ever left behind.
I hate snowshoeing. All right, guys. Looks like we're inching in on the sightings area. Figure we stage a base camp down here and do sweeps out from here. It's gonna be.
Everyone keeps saying we're gonna see something. We better see something.
To cover more ground, we decided to split up. Ben's got the telescope, and he's positioned himself on a vantage point facing south over the entire valley. James and I have an infrared camera and a thermal camera, and we found another vantage point looking north, not too far away.
I inverted the colors just to show how cold it is. On the ground right here, yeah, that would be 8 degrees. Let's see how cold you are. Oh my god, this is the scariest look you've ever had in your life. You aged 100 years on this thermal camera. Hey, what? If things get really bad out here, I want you to know that I eat Ben, not you.
Ben for Ryder James. Ben for Ryder James.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to point out that it looks like we've got eyes on a regular flight path moving west to east. Over.
You've got movement over your right shoulder, and then movement right over here. But, you know, what people are describing is not a regular plane. They're saying massive orbs the size of hotels. Nothing like, you know, just these regular planes that we're seeing right now. All right, well, I'm gonna throw this thing back up on the tripod to get a steadier reading. What do you think?
Check it on Ben, see how he's doing.
Okay, sounds good.
I want to stay in touch.
Okay.
Oh my god. What are all these weird lights everyone's talking about? Hey, James. It's going so fine so far, just trying to calibrate the telescope. Wow, look at that. Moon coming over the trees. It's windy. You can see the air moving.
Wow.
Man, that doesn't look like it's real. That's cool.
What the hell was that? Let's see.
Look at it flashing. I really want to know what that is.
What the hell is that? Whoa, 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 whoa. Ryder for Ben and James.
Ryder, this is Ben. Go ahead.
I'm following some stars, had my camera pointed upward, look down, and I get one big flash of white light, and it was gone.
Do you know where you were pointed?
Yeah, I'm pointed under Orion's belt over here.
Okay. What do you see?
I've not seen anything frightfully unusual.
All I can see is the moon. Oh, that moon's blowing everything out. Damn it.
Let's see.
We continued to search the skies until it was clear that whatever I saw was gone. I know I saw something last night, and it's just a shame that we didn't get a better view of it because the moon was just way too bright. Now we're heading to the very epicenter of not only sightings, but other potential ET phenomenon.
I think we're in Colorado. Cattle mutilations are huge here. So I think it's definitely worth an investigation to see why people are tying them to UFOs. James, I know how squirmish you are, so... Oh, here they are.
That's just nasty. Do you know how long that cow was?
But yeah, the entire jaw is just cut away.
There's got to be some physical evidence of that at the scene.
I'm skeptical that the alleged mutilations of these animals couldn't be caused by natural predators or some sort of diseases or the decomposition process. So I'm really curious to see what the ranchers have to say.
We were able to contact 2 ranchers in the region who both say that they've had recent cattle mutilations.
All right, this is the end of the line.
Good luck.
Thanks for the ride. We may or may not be back. Good luck. Bye.
Just a young scientist going off in the wild.
I do admire his tenacity, I really do.
Ben McGee.
Tom Miller.
Very nice to meet you.
Same here.
So, I hear you had a cattle mutilation recently.
Yeah, I did. About 4 months ago, right out here in this field. I got a phone call, and a neighbor was going by the road here, and he said, "I think you have a dead cow out there." Got in my pickup and came over here, and sure enough, there was a dead cow there. And I got to examining it. The eyes were gone, the tongue was gone.
Had you ever seen anything like that before?
Well, actually, I had a couple of them before.
Really? Well, same sort of thing, eyes missing, tongue missing, weird holes in it?
Yes, the first one was about 10 years ago, and the second one was about 2 years ago, and then this one was about 4 months ago.
Wow. Is this the cow?
Yeah, this is
Oh.
part of the hide, and that's part of the bones left.
I didn't know you still had any of it here.
You know, like this cow, I feed them every morning. They were all real healthy, and then all of a sudden it's dead.
If we walk over here, can you show me the actual position where it was laying? Do you remember which way the legs were pointing, things like that?
Yeah, the head was pointed that way, and the legs were pointed to the north that way. The eyes were gone, and I guess the big thing, there was no blood. No blood at all. There was no tracks. Darn thing, it looked like it was dead and it was dropped here.
Are you saying that you think it was dead before it ended up here?
That's really what I think.
Really? I don't think necessarily anything extraordinary had to happen at this site based on the way it looks. But that's why I'm taking samples, to see if radiologically or chemically there's any evidence of something exotic.
How are you?
So James and I are meeting with Mike Duran. He's a rancher that says he's had more than one cattle mutilation on his property, and the most recent was just a few years ago.
Where did this most recent incident occur?
This was right on the bottom down here by these trees. What happened was that morning when I went to go feed, well, the cow wasn't there. So I went up on the property, and as I looked down here, down on the whole meadow, because you can see from on top of the hill up there, you can see everything. And I noticed that she was down by the river. The cow was right in this area here. When I found her, you know, it seemed like she had walked down this trail, was going to get some water, and then just happened to die and just fall over, until I found that her udders had been removed, and around the vaginal area that had been removed also. And all this right in here is all fresh mud, and there were no tracks at all.
Wow.
You know.
Do you believe that extraterrestrials are the ones actually doing these mutilations?
I do believe that. They beam that animal up into the spacecraft, do what they have to, then bring it back and drop it back into that field. And that's the reason that we can't find any tracks.
You've mentioned that before these mutilations happen, that there's usually a sighting associated with them.
Yes, and shortly before that, it was a bright light in the sky, and I watched it go, and then until it just disappeared.
You know, how is that different from conventional airplanes up in the sky?
Oh, well, you see the blinking lights. There's no jet stream or nothing. It's just a white, shiny light. It's kind of weird, and you know that we're talking about this now. You know, 2 nights. Monday night we saw a light in the sky. Also, we saw that.
So this
night.
very week you had a sighting?
Yes, we did.
Yep.
You've mentioned that before these mutilations happen, that there's usually a sighting associated with them.
Monday night we saw a light in the sky. Also, my son and I.
So this very week you had a sighting?
Yes, we did.
So there could be a freshly mutilated.
There could be, because especially if these sightings are happening, something's going to be happening soon.
Mike Duran talked about light beams coming out of UFOs and zapping cattle. Whether or not ETs are involved, I have no idea. However, this could be a great opportunity for us to determine whether or not UFOs and cattle mutilations are connected. So we're going to bring in the help of local cattle mutilation investigator Chuck Zukowski.
I've worked at least 10 cases out here within the past 3 years.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
What physical evidence on the ground has led you to believe, in addition to the animal, that something less prosaic is going on?
You know, have an animal sitting here, laying dead, no blood, nothing seeping out. You have no evidence of human intervention, no footprints, no tire tracks coming in, dropping the animal out. For God's sakes, you know, you really have to have something large enough to be able to lift this animal up to do what you need to do to it and drop it back down. There's absolutely no trace.
As investigators, you know, with your experience, what trace evidence are we out there looking for?
Well, first thing, you know, obviously you want to take samples. I would look for just a little cross section where the lab can actually see what caused the incision. So you want a couple of those. You know, if you have the guts, you can go into the guts. You can go in and look.
To further investigate, we decided to take Chuck out with us on our investigation.
James, can you grab that one for me?
Together, we'll look for a fresh cow carcass to see if there is anything to this theory that UFOs are responsible for these mutilations.
You want to try and find a mutilated cow?
Yes, I would love to.
All right, Ryder.
All right, doing a scan of the mountainside here, just in case there's any evidence of a recently mutilated cow.
That's one of the most practical damn uses I've ever seen for a thermal camera in the field.
Looks pretty clear. Well, if we do come across a mutilated cattle, at least the cold would preserve it a little bit.
Except problem is the cold's also damaging it. That's what frostbite is. If cells actually freeze, they'll break, and then you've ruined the chemistry, so it's a fine line.
You never know what to expect when you come down to places like this. Watch your footing there. It's a little slippery.
Well, Mike Duran was talking about this is like nicknamed the alien field. Why is that?
Well, probably because of his cattle mutilation that he had in 2009.
What kind of wild animals are out here?
We do have bear.
Is that why you brought your gun with you?
Oh, absolutely. I never venture out any type of environment like this, especially when you don't know it's hiding 20 feet in front of you.
Oh, holy, you're not messing around.
But we do have to watch out for mountain lions. There was one that was seen earlier tonight, just down the street.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're going to be walking down towards the stream, and you know, that's one of their nice stocking areas where other animals go to feed. All right.
Let's go this way. Ah, sweet.
Oh, man.
It's always something, huh?
What are you looking at?
Thought I heard something.
Okay, we need to find another route.
Yeah.
This should be the area where the mutilation happened. So one of the things we're looking for was a possibility that the animal was up the bank and was killed up there and then fell down or rolled down. So you look for
scarring of the
nothing.
dirt.
There was no skid marks. There was nothing that showed the possibility that the animal hit and rolled all the way down. We saw no evidence that the cow even moved while it was dying. What we did see, though, is we saw half of the animal laying in this purgatory river, and the other half right here.
Where does the blood go?
That's a good question. Where does the blood go? We don't see it. It appears the cow was dropped.
You were the first professional on site to investigate, right?
We were the first professional investigators.
And what did you think? Did you know immediately?
Absolutely. I mean, when you start looking at the just the carnage, the incisions, you know, we knew right off that this wasn't anything that a predator would do.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
What?
4 pairs of eyes right there at the tree line. Do you see that?
No, I can't see it. I can't see it. Oh my God, I cannot get this FLIR working right now.
I could really use that right now.
I know. I don't know what it's doing. It's going through every menu possible.
They're getting up.
I really can't.
Jesus. 1, 2, 4. Definitely 4 pairs of eyes.
Okay.
Ryder.
Oh, it's freezing on me. Hold on.
But I see some blinking lights, dude. Oh my God, I see some lights that... Is that it right there? Oh mother. Oh, I see it now.
Oh, Jesus.
What?
4 pairs of eyes right there at the tree line.
Eyes?
Multiple pairs.
Oh my God, I cannot get FLIR working right now.
I could really use that right now.
I know. I don't know what it's doing. It's going through every menu possible.
They're getting up. Definitely 4 pairs of eyes.
Okay.
What are we looking at? And
Oh yeah, those are cows. Thank God, those are cows. The good news is, if we have cows, we may have mutilated cows.
I'm gonna move closer to the cattle to see what we can find.
Oh.
What? What do you see?
Jesus, look at that.
Oh my God. Those are definitely massive cat prints.
Oh yeah, look at the talons on the front of those guys.
Yep.
It's like a 150-pound cat.
Oh my God, look at it. Oh my God. Why is it holding so much heat?
Because it's fresh. Oh my God, there are two sizes.
Look at that. There's that little one and then that.
Yes.
What that means is a possible mother and children, which is the worst scenario possible.
They go up and down this road. Way too exposed here. Look at the brush. This is an ambush. You can come from any angle.
Oh yeah.
And you've got coverage.
This little trail right here.
It's cored through. I'll go stand next to a volcano, but I sure don't like being stalked. You know me. I'm about the data, but you can't collect any data when you're dinner. Give James a heads up. He's right by the water.
Rider for James.
James, unfortunately, we found very, very fresh mountain lion prints.
Well, chances are that mountain lion knows exactly where you guys are.
That's not funny, James.
That's not funny, and you're also by the water line.
True that, but Chuck's packing.
I just saw something reflect off my flashlight.
Did you hear something?
Yep. They're gonna come right down this slope.
Come in, Ryder. Chuck has got a message for you. Don't run. Don't run.
Just back out slowly, and then they'll just leave you alone.
Great.
All right.
Now let's get the hell out of here.
With a mountain lion nearby, it was just too dangerous to continue, so we had to call it a night. Some locals believe that UFOs are not only coming to Colorado to abduct cattle, but they're also here abducting humans. In fact, nearby is a man who claims to be a multiple abductee that is visited frequently. He claims that he's actually captured footage of one of these abductors.
This is video footage that Stan Romanek shot from inside his house of what he says and what other people say is an extraterrestrial being outside his window.
On the ground.
You're saying he captured an alien on video?
That is what we've been told, and that's what the video shows.
Is he selling the video? Is he making any money off this video?
No.
So there's no sort of incentive for him to...
No.
This would be very expensive and time-consuming to create. I saw Stan Romanek's video, and I immediately thought, really? I'm open to finding out more. I haven't completely dismissed it yet.
I'm not saying that this video in particular, do I believe 100% is a real extraterrestrial, but I can say that it is not a person in a mask.
It doesn't strike me immediately as CG, but I'm not necessarily convinced it's not somebody in a mask.
The eyes blink.
Truthfully, the alien video looked a lot like someone poked a mask up and, you know, it dropped back down. People say they see the eyes blink. Maybe I see that. It's awful grainy, but still nothing you couldn't do with, you know, even an articulated, slightly articulating something with your hand.
Since then, he believes that he's not only had multiple encounters of UFOs in the sky following his car, following him, but he's had multiple encounters with extraterrestrials that have come to his house, that he has drawings of, that he's been abducted multiple times. It's a fascinating case, and I think it definitely bears investigation.
I try to keep an open mind, so I'm not jumping to any conclusions until we actually meet Stan and find out what's going on.
Interesting thing was, I was a real aggressive skeptic. Now I seem to be the poster child for the strange and unusual.
I would love to talk a little bit about the evidence and, you know, the encounters that you've actually had with ETs.
Yeah. Beautiful winter day. I went to bed about 11 o'clock. I went to go see who it was. At the door were 3 people, a female and 2 males. These things had very huge, very slanted, almond-shaped blue eyes. Their eyes were so blue they were almost violet. And the female came forward and she grabbed my wrist. I felt this excruciating pain on my lower back. And I woke up the next morning just convinced I had some kind of horrible nightmare. And I felt these holes in my back, and they were fresh holes.
This photograph right here?
Yeah.
It's a photo of the back, the lower back.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I looked down, not only did I have holes in my back, but all the hair was rubbed off my wrists, and I had these wounds on my wrists. I flipped the lid. I totally lost it. I mean, I was bawling, I was shaking.
Do you ask them, why me? Why me? What do you want from me? I mean,
it's not like they...
Can you ask those questions?
I don't think they really care why.
And is this why you started doing some surveillance?
Stuff kept happening, kept happening, kept happening. The big one, though, July 17th, 2003. Now, what's interesting is you can actually see the infrared reflecting off its retina.
Damn, look at that little critter.
And he blinks and he sits there and squints.
Weird the way he shoots down like that.
He saw me coming and he dropped down because he saw me coming.
What did you do right now?
When I saw it, I ran upstairs to get my wife because I saw that thing running away. And
where did you see it running away?
To the backyard.
There appears to be something odd going on at Stan Romanek's house. This is a classic case where he's either hoaxing or he's being visited by aliens.
It's hard for my first suspicion to not be that it's staged. So I think we definitely need to see if we can't capture some of the stuff that Stan claims is happening to him.
So I've got multiple views. The ones I'm most interested in are the camera looking out Stan's window. And then we've got the south gate. Stan said he's gonna do his best to invite something in, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, all right, keep in touch.
Unable to cover all the sightings areas with cameras, we decided to split up. Ben would head north to do a radiation test, while Stan and I would head south to an area of a most recent encounter.
All right, ready to do this?
Yes. I hope we catch something.
Yeah, me too.
You know, there's a common misconception that you have to be in the middle of nowhere to see something. Our experience proves that you can be anywhere and see something.
Just under 15 microarc per hour. Unless you had some activation of the concrete by some sort of nearby fission reactor, neutron pulse or something. Not really expecting anything, but I could rule it out. Yeah, I don't know if anything's actually going on in the house, but allegedly that's where everything's going on.
Stan, look, do you see it?
What the hell is that? That's not the plane.
It's gotta be, right?
No, because it's too big. It's a disc.
Ooh. Hey, Ryder, it's James.
Yeah, copy that. You seeing something?
I am. I saw... Oh, it's doing it now. The camera, it's facing the south. The resolution is compromised, and it's been flickering on and off.
That's what happens. That's how it starts.
Oh, what is that?
Ooh. Hey, Ryder, it's James.
Yeah, copy that. You seeing something?
I am. I saw... Oh, it's doing it now. The camera, it's facing the south. Angela's fence there where she claimed to have seen that entity 4 months ago. The resolution is compromised, and it's been flickering on and off.
That's what happens. That's how it starts.
And unfortunately, that's how it starts.
For whatever reason, that's typical when they show up. They'll affect the energy. They'll affect anything electrical.
He says that's pretty typical when they show up. They affect the energy and anything electrical. Okay, everyone, we're on high alert. Things like this have happened in the past when Stan's been visited, and he thinks that they might be here.
Copy that. James to Ben, come in, over.
That's where Stan thinks all the action is. Orion the Hunter. Sure would be nice if one of these little critters would jump out. Well, first contact. You'll be happy to know you are not radioactive above background. Did I notice a street lamp go off?
James to Ryder, come in.
Go ahead, James.
I lost radio contact with Ben.
If it keeps up and you haven't heard from him in the next 5 minutes, definitely let me know and we'll head back there.
Where's Ben?
He went south, the complete opposite direction down the street.
Hey, Ryder, come in one more time, it's James.
Go ahead, James.
You know the south gate, you guys left it wide open, now it's shut. Who did that, over?
Hooray.
We weren't over there. Mark all the time codes down so we can go back and analyze that stuff, but don't stop recording. Definitely don't stop recording.
Oh, get the out of here.
It's kind of, look how bright it got.
It's kind of like pulsing in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, get the out of here. That didn't just happen. Ryder?
Hey, something.
Ryder.
Go ahead, James.
Somebody's got to be playing a joke on me right now.
James, we are so far away. I don't know what's going on.
Let's get headed back.
James, come in. James, do you copy? What's going on, James?
There's an alien looking through the goddamn window of the office.
Right now, there just was.
It's outside right now in the yard.
I don't believe him. Really?
Are you sure that's what you saw? Are you positive?
1,000% positive. Over.
But you sure it wasn't one of the cats or, anything blowing by?
Ryder, I know what I saw.
Some may be given to wonder what it is I'm doing out here. It's not to scare James, nor is it to make fun of Stan. We're testing what a mask actually looks like on camera. Relax, it was me.
No way.
Can I tell you, I heard you yell outside. Did you really? Yes, I did.
Thought I saw what appeared to be an alien, but I wasn't sure. Nobody was giving it to me straight.
No, that's why I called you out here. We both present a different sort of skeptical side. You lean a little more toward things are happening. I lean a little more toward things aren't. But even with that, in the heat of the moment, you don't have much time to process. Mm-hmm. Even a mask was convincing enough to get you to go.
I have to confess, you really do look like an alien.
Are we alone? To this day, the inhabitants of planet Earth have looked to the stars for proof of other life. But the truth isn't out there, it's in here. Since World War II, the British government has been watching us, watching the skies. Buried in the vaults of the Ministry of Defense are thousands of reports on UFO sightings, some left unexplained. But now, after decades of secrecy, the files are being released. And for the first time, the truth about Britain's UFOs is revealed. A near mid-air collision.
I can't speculate on what it was, I really can't. I mean, I don't know to this day what it was.
A World War II bomber's close encounter.
I don't talk about it too much to people, only close friends.
An unidentified object caught on radar. And new evidence on one of the most celebrated UFO cases, the Welsh Roswell.
If it could be shown that any UFOs were extraterrestrial in origin, people's entire belief system would fundamentally change.
Strange, unexplained stories that leave many wondering if there really is life out there. What are three popular word searches on the internet? Perhaps the first two are no surprise. UFOs have an incredible hold on the popular imagination, but few myths have involved government investigations, surveillance, and cover-ups. UFOs have. One person who knows just how seriously UFO sightings have been taken by the British authorities is ex-MOD operative Nick Pope.
From 1952 onwards, it was decided that there really needed to be a small unit set up permanently to research and investigate the UFO phenomenon. And really from the 50s right up until 2009, the Ministry of Defense did have a small project looking at the UFO mystery.
Pope manned the UFO desk in the 90s, helping add to the thousands of files the ministry had gathered for decades. Now that they're being released from the vaults, key UFO eyewitnesses give their side of the stories. And UFO experts, skeptics and believers interrogate just what the MOD was keeping secret. Dr. David Clark is the journalist who helped first persuade the MOD to release the files.
If you look in the files, there are thousands of unusual things people in the sky from right across the British Isles. There's absolutely no doubt that people see things in the sky that they can't identify. They always have done.
6th of January 1995. Two experienced pilots of a Boeing 737 carrying 60 passengers from Milan to Manchester report a near collision. It's an incredible sighting of an unidentified flying object which sends the authorities into a spin.
In the defence files, there are quite a number of incidents involving near misses between civil aircraft and unidentified flying objects. The most impressive of all was a report that was made by the crew of a British Airways 737.
Speedbird 5061, overhead Pennines, 9 miles.
They were just about to enter this cloud bank, quite a clear sky, good sort of vision. Suddenly the first officer said he saw this object coming towards him like an illuminated Christmas tree.
What the hell?
It was so low in its approach and so close that he automatically ducked, thinking there was going to be a collision. This thing just zoomed past, and immediately he turned to the captain and said, "Did you see that?" The captain said, "Yeah, I saw it as well."
Immediately the pilots radioed into Manchester Control Tower.
There's a lot of concern amongst air crews about what damage could be done to the reputation if they became known as, the crew that see flying saucers. So it was interesting in this case that despite that, these two air crew decided that when they landed they were going to file an official air miss report. So that would then trigger a full detailed investigation by the Civil Aviation Authority, which is exactly what happened.
For the first time, the MOD files show how this extraordinary incident sparked a full-scale investigation conducted by aircraft near-miss investigator Anthony Booth.
Well, it was unusual for a start because it was the only one in my memory in 7 years of working in that particular department that I'd actually dealt with something like this. We could talk to the pilots, both the pilots. We would go through looking at radar recordings, RT transcript recordings of the voices of the pilots, recordings of what Manchester Air Traffic Control had to say. We just looked at anything that might shed some light on what this object might have been.
The pilots now refuse to talk publicly about the near crash, but the MOD files recall what they told Anthony Booth at the time.
My attention was initially focused on the glare shield in front of me, but I was diverted by something in my peripheral vision. The object had a number of small white lights, rather like a Christmas tree. The high speed of the object, although unable to estimate its distance, it was very close.
There's a transcript of the conversation between the captain of the 737 and ground control.
This is Speedbird 5061. We just had something go down the right-hand side, just above us, very fast.
And Manchester immediately come back and say, well, there's nothing seen on radar.
Was it an aircraft? Well, it had lights. It went down the starboard side very quickly.
Manchester say, and just above you?
Just slightly above us, yes.
Manchester then advised them to keep an eye out for anything, but they can't see anything at all. It must have been very fast.
It got down very quickly after it passed you, I think. Okay, well, there you go.
The Manchester Control Tower could not find any radar signal. To radar expert Doug Robb, this is extraordinary.
It says the likelihood of such activity escaping detection is remote, as the area is well served by several radars, and any movement at the levels in question would almost certainly have generated a radar response. Nothing was seen.
So what was it that avoided radar detection? The MOD files show that the investigators and pilots considered all the possibilities.
It was a hang glider.
At night, he's suicidal.
Hang glider would not be picked up by normal radar, no.
Comet?
No, I don't think so.
A meteor could be detected on re-entry if the radar was looking exactly in the right direction as that piece of debris went past at some speed.
Military?
Maybe, but I didn't recognise it. But we're near a major airport. It would have shown up on the radar response.
Spy plane?
I don't think so. Didn't look like a stealth.
Stealth aircraft would not be picked up by normal radars. If a spy plane is being kept secret, it's not going to be flying where people can see it. And certainly nowhere near airliners.
UFO?
That'd be daft. I don't know.
These pilots are not lying. They did have an unusual experience, which to them remains baffling.
The files show the investigation seriously analysed the possibility of military activity. But they found no evidence from any official source.
It seems most unlikely that such a flight would have been conducted so close to a busy international airport.
So what was it? We revealed the conclusion, locked away in the MOD vaults since 1995, reached by Anthony Booth's investigation.
Most of the incidents that we looked at, we could arrive at some conclusion, definite conclusion. But in this case, we couldn't really. We had to come up with an assessment of cause and risk. Both the risk and the cause were unaccessible.
Degree of risk, unaccessible. Cause, unaccessible. Really, that statement is really, really unusual to find that in an official air miss report, and it's basically saying we don't have a clue what was seen.
What they'll say back at BA.
I think they might rib us about this one.
At the end of their the summary of the working group's discussions, it says that there is no doubt that these pilots both saw an object and that it was of sufficient significance to prompt an air miss report. Unfortunately, the nature and identity of this object remains unknown. To speculate about extraterrestrial activity, fascinating though it may be, is not within the group's remit and must be left to those whose interest lies in this field.
To some ufologists like Nick Pope, the absence of any real conclusion leaves serious and unanswered questions.
Now, to me, this was quite extraordinary. UFO does not mean alien spacecraft, but clearly, in some people's minds, whether it was the pilot and the first officer, or whether it was the investigators at the Civil Aviation Authority or the Ministry of Defence, clearly somebody was thinking, well, maybe, just maybe, this is something extraterrestrial.
I can't speculate on what it was. I really can't. I mean, I don't know to this day what it was. All I know is that we can't assume we know everything in this day and age. There may be things that we don't know about.
The Manchester near-miss investigation shows just how seriously unexplained sightings were taken by the MOD. But the UFO desk had been receiving reports from pilots for decades. The files reveal sightings during World War II, and in some cases, these were considered so grave, they were referred right to the top of government. The newly released UFO files confirm what many experts suspected. The British government was investigating unexplained sightings as far back as World War II.
I don't talk about it too much to people, only close friends who experienced perhaps flying during the war.
Spring 1944. Britain was engaged in heavy bombing raids over Germany. Rumours of strange, unidentified missiles were getting through to top command. Considered a threat to public morale, the MOD files reveal that the order to keep them secret came right from the top. Sightings, such as the one seen by gunner Bernard Dye.
Now I have here a personal wartime diary. I'll read you an entry which I wrote on the 26th of April. Operation Essen. 300 aircraft raided Essen.
Dye then recorded the most extraordinary sight.
By unidentified objects, which I describe as just red balls of fire.
This is the first time Bernard Dye has spoken on television about what happened that night.
We left the target area and we were heading back towards Mildenhall, our base. We were heading across France. Everything appeared to be peaceful. Suddenly I saw 3 balls of fire coming up from below and reported this to our pilot, Arthur Horton, on the intercom. A few seconds afterwards, the rear gunner, Brian Harper, he observed 2 more red balls of fire. Immediately, Arthur was a bit perturbed, and were they fighters? No, not fighters, Arthur, just balls of fire coming towards us. I said to Arthur, now, evasive action, corkscrew, starboard, go, go, go. We travelled over 300 miles per hour. The aircraft was shaking like a leaf, and still they were following. The pilot was getting worried about burning the engines up. Engineer, Dave, what about the engines? Never mind the engines, skipper. Keep going, or something to that effect. The words were rather rude. It certainly gave me and the crew the willies to see them. After a short distance, these 5 red objects, they just got slower, and the red lights disappeared into the blackness below, and we got safely home. Well, when we got back to Mildenhall, our base, each crew is interrogated by intelligence officers, and they just laughed at us. And this upset the pilot, and, he said, you wouldn't bloody well have been laughing if you'd have been sitting with us in the aircraft.
What did gunner Bernard Dye think they were?
Didn't know what to think, but I thought they were just a new weapon that the Germans had invented.
Bernard Dye was not alone. Other World War II aircrew had also reported unexplained sightings, and we now know that at least one of these reports was suppressed, and the order to do so came right from the top. Wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill was so terrified the report would leak out, he ordered a 50-year blackout.
Mr. Churchill declared that the UFO incident should be immediately classified for at least 50 years, and its status reviewed by a future Prime Minister.
Churchill's order referred specifically to a late World War II sighting made by a British aircrew returning from a reconnaissance mission over Germany. The files record,
"My grandfather was present during a debate about an unexpected incident experienced by an RAF bomber crew."
The MOD files show that the story originates from the grandson of Churchill's bodyguard, who had been present at an urgent meeting between the Prime Minister and the US commander of the Allied forces, General Eisenhower, who discussed the incident together.
He was writing in to see if the ministry could confirm this story, that this guy who was the bodyguard was present at a discussion between Winston Churchill and Eisenhower about a mysterious incident when the crew of a Royal Air Force reconnaissance aircraft that had seen this metallic object that had appeared by the side of their aircraft, and it followed the aircraft, and it behaved in a way that was completely unexplainable in terms of it being, a German aircraft or any other sort of Nazi flying machine that they were aware of.
A leading aircraft expert was also at the meeting.
He dismissed any possibility that it could be a missile, since a missile could not suddenly match its speed with a slower aircraft and then accelerate again.
Churchill was determined this would go no further.
Another person at the meeting raised the possibility of an unidentified flying object, at which point Mr. Churchill declared that the incident should be immediately classified.
But the file goes further. One extraordinary line explains just how fearful Churchill was of public reaction to this UFO sighting, if it ever got out.
This event should be immediately classified, since it would create mass panic amongst the general population and destroy one's belief in the church.
But the files also reveal that this wasn't the first time Churchill had got embroiled in UFO sightings.
In October 1912, there was sightings of mysterious lights in the sky over the dockyards at Sheerness in Essex. Winston Churchill was the First Lord of the Admiralty, and he had to look into this, and Churchill had to admit in Parliament that he couldn't explain what had been seen.
The files show that even after the war, Churchill took a personal interest in unexplained sightings.
In the aftermath of the sightings in Washington, D.C. in 1952, that made all the news headlines, Winston Churchill again became interested and sent the memo to the Secretary of State for Air. What does all this stuff about flying saucers amount to? What can it mean? What is the truth? Let me have a report at your convenience.
Until now, Gunner Bernard Dye never knew there were other World War II sightings that Churchill wanted kept secret at such a critical time in the war. We showed him the newly released MOD file on Churchill.
Well, after reading this report, it sounds, really identical to what we witnessed and saw that night. I haven't heard of this before, but it doesn't surprise me that he was told about it, because things happened during the war years, and there were other objects obviously appeared.
It's interesting that during the 1940s there were a very large number of sightings reported by aircrew, and there are various Royal Air Force files at the National Archives that detail some of these reports, rocket phenomena they were described as, but they were never able to explain them. And at the end of the war, when they debriefed some of the Luftwaffe pilots, they said that they'd seen very similar things themselves, and they thought they were Allied secret weapons.
So is there an explanation as to what the aircrew saw? Dave Clark has his own theory.
They just thought that it was a combination of misperception on part of the aircrew. They were expecting enemy action because they were so charged up on adrenaline.
UFO or not, the files show that the World War II leaders were desperate to keep such sightings away from the public. The next file reveals how, even decades later, the government was still panicking about UFOs. Many UFO experts believe that the Pitlochry file illustrates one of the most significant UFO conspiracies of recent times. It involves photographs of an unidentified object captured flying over a remote Scottish valley. The photos were sent to the MOD, but mysteriously went missing. Journalist Mark Pilkington has spent years trying to track down these UFO images.
The Pitlochry photographs in the MOD files date back to the 4th of August 1990, when two witnesses on the A9 near Calvine, near Pitlochry, allegedly saw a large diamond-shaped craft hovering in the air for about 10 minutes and took 6 photographs of it. And the object that they claimed to have seen was accompanied by 2 aircraft, which the MOD later identified as Harriers.
The photographer has never been identified. He sent the 6 photographs to the Scottish Daily Record newspaper. The paper never ran the story. Instead, they referred them to the MOD for investigation.
The Ministry of Defence took their own copies of the photographs, which have since disappeared. They, according to the files, sent the original negatives back to the Scottish Daily Record, which inexplicably never ran a story on the subject and never published the photographs, and presumably returned them to the 2 men whose names have been removed from the file, so we can't ask the 2 men. So mystery piled upon mystery.
All that remains in the files is a photocopy of the alleged photographs. Ufologists later mocked up this photo of what was seen. But Nick Pope dealt with the original photos and file when he worked behind the MOD desk.
Both the Defence Intelligence Staff and the Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Centre analysed this very carefully, and the consensus was clear on this. This was a real object. It was maybe 25, 30 metres in diameter. I sat down with my opposite number from the Defence Intelligence Staff at a briefing about UFOs. We discussed this photograph extensively. This was something that was of defence interest, because clearly it could do something that we couldn't, and we wanted that technology.
The MOD was determined to play down the incident.
There's an interesting briefing by the Ministry of Defence press office on defensive lines to take if these photographs made it into the newspapers, and they were asked questions about this. And there's a list that basically says that we have looked at the photographs and no definitive conclusions have been reached regarding the large diamond-shaped object. And if they were pressed by the media, they were told to say all sighting reports received by the Ministry are referred to the staff in the departments which are responsible for the air defence of the UK.
During his time with the Ministry, Pope had a blown-up copy of the photograph on his office wall, until it was personally taken down by his superior.
One suggestion was that this was a secret prototype American spy plane. My head of division convinced himself that this probably was some secret aircraft or drone, and he ordered that this be removed.
We know from the files that there was a lot of internal discussion about, were the Americans flying this incredible spy plane, and if so, why had they not asked for permission, for this thing to fly through British airspace?
Journalist Mark Pilkington believes that events at the time could well have influenced what people thought they had seen.
This was just 2 days after the first Gulf War had broken out, and there were certainly great deployments of aircraft towards the Middle East, and the UK was a kind of sort of stop-off point and a sort of launch pad for a lot of those aircraft.
The MOD were clearly worried about public reaction, just as Churchill had been 4 decades earlier. So was there a cover-up by the MOD over the mysterious Pitlochry photographs?
There's a possibility that the Ministry of Defence destroyed these images, possibly because they thought that they were some American spy plane that they'd rather we didn't know about, or maybe if this thing genuinely remained unexplained, because we simply didn't want the embarrassment of saying that there might be things in our airspace with speeds and manoeuvres that exceed everything that we've got, and yet which remain unexplained.
However, all we're basing this on, we should make clear, is a very grainy, fuzzy black and white image that, for all I know, could have been drawn by a child with crayons.
Mark Pilkington is still looking for the real Pitlochry photographs, to find out just what did put Britain's defences to the test. But 6 years later, on Britain's east coast, another UFO sighting sparks off a full-scale military investigation and a direct challenge to the Secretary of State for Defence. In 1996, the Ministry of Defence was drawn into a serious breach of UK defences by a UFO over East Anglia. MOD files reveal it not only involved the police, Coast Guard and RAF, but a call to the Defence Secretary to scramble jet fighters.
I'm very concerned about an incident that occurred off the East Anglian coast recently involving a visual unidentified flying craft sighting that was correlated by various different military radar systems. Why weren't our jets scrambled?
It was one of the biggest UFO scares ever. And it all started one quiet October night on the East Coast.
It was the police officers, actually, who phoned in the first reports. There's an extract from that. In the early hours of the morning, the police are saying we can see a red and green rotating light in the sky directly southeast from Skegness. It looks to be high in the sky directly over the Wash.
The patrol officers reported the sighting to the station sergeant.
I immediately phoned it through to the Skegness control room, who relayed it onto Great Yarmouth Coast Guard Maritime Rescue, suspecting it might be an incident over the sea.
We had a report at about 3:15 local time from Skegness Police, and they could actually see this light in a southeasterly direction. We were uncertain of what it was at the time, and we immediately made a report to the local air defence radars to see if they could see anything.
The call went through to RAF Neatishead, the most important air defence centre in southern England.
Clyde radar has a contact bearing at 221 degrees at...
They noticed that on one of the radars, a blip that they couldn't identify, that wasn't an aircraft.
Could the mysterious radar blip and the strange lights seen by the police be the same thing? Panic calls from the public started to come in.
No, I don't think they're invading.
A call was put out to shipping to keep a lookout for unidentified lights. Then a tanker came back.
MV Conocast to Yarmouth, we're seeing a group of lights above the wash.
The vessel at sea was the Coast, and she was in much this sort of area.
At 3:50 a.m., Patrol Officer P.C. Leyland rushed onto the police station roof to video the strange lights and managed to capture 5 minutes of footage now showing a single stationary white light. News of the sighting spread quickly through the UFO grapevine.
The transcript of the conversation between the Coast Guard and the police and the trawler crew was leaked to the local news, and it suddenly became this huge UFO incident that got to the attention of the local MP.
The sighting gathered such momentum, even local Labour MP Martin Redmond got embroiled and started asking difficult questions.
Martin Redmond said, look, you've got police officers seeing UFOs, you've got Royal Air Force officers tracking them on radar, and yet you don't even get the aircraft in the air to take a look at this thing.
Here's a copy of the letter that Martin Redmond MP sent to the Right Honourable Michael Portillo, Secretary of State for Defence, and he says, I'm very concerned about an incident that occurred off the East Anglian coast recently involving a visual unidentified flying craft sighting, which was correlated by various different military radar systems. While I'm interested in finding out what was seen, my primary concern stems from the absolute shambles that such an event seemed to cause. So he's really sort of having a go at the Ministry of Defence and saying, you know, why didn't you react to this? What are the RAF doing? So this really stung the RAF.
The files reveal a picture of chaos. The letter sparked off an MOD investigation to explain the RAF's resistance. Doug Robb was operations manager on the night. We showed him the MOD findings. He wasn't surprised by the conclusions.
This diagram is the radar plots over Boston on that night. And in summary, it shows that Claxby picked up the object, but it didn't move, and it was on land. And after investigation, it was decided that it was the church tower, the Boston Stump, as it's known.
The files were certain this was the culprit.
The church is known in aviation circles as the Boston Stump, and appears occasionally on some radars in certain radar propagation conditions.
They said that this was a completely separate phenomenon to the bright stationary lights that had been seen by the police from Boston and Skegness and by the tanker crew.
The report concluded there was no justification to order the scramble of RAF fighters, much to the chagrin of the local MP, Martin Redmond.
You'd scramble for a high-speed incoming aircraft 200 miles away, but you're not going to scramble aircraft for a fixed object on land. I mean, what's the threat?
If what the radar picked up was indeed a church, what then were the mysterious lights seen by the police and the tanker crew? The MOD scrutinized the police video footage.
It suggests a distant celestial source.
The MOD sent the footage onto the Royal Greenwich Observatory for analysis. Their report has been kept buried since 1996 in the MOD files. UFO and astronomy expert Ian Ridpath was shown their conclusions and the police video.
If you look at the police video, you can see it's just a bright dot of light just sitting there, not appearing to do anything. So, to me, this shows that even the most impeccable witnesses can actually make what is really a basic mistake, which is just misidentifying bright celestial objects. Well, the most common culprit is the planet Venus. In fact, it's called the Queen of the UFOs, and this is because it's the brightest object in the night sky after the sun and the moon, which could have been what the police were seeing.
He also believes there's an explanation for the colours of the lights.
When the camera zooms in, very often the camera will completely lose focus, and you can actually see some odd shape to the light, which is actually the diaphragm of the camera.
But this doesn't explain what the tanker crew observed. The MOD investigation found that they saw a light coming from a different direction to Venus. And they were baffled.
These lights remain unexplained.
But expert Ian Ridpath believes there is an answer.
The object that the tanker saw to the north, I think, was another bright star called Vega, which is also just appearing to twinkle and flash multicolored lights.
UFO expert and skeptic Dave Clark believes there is a reason why this escalated into such a major incident.
This happened in 1996, which was the very height of the popularity of the X-Files series on TV. It was the biggest sort of year, the 1996-97, in terms of number of reports they received since 1978.
So is this case closed for East Anglia? Or will more mystery emerge, just as it has, with one of Britain's most celebrated cases that refuses to go away, the Welsh Roswell? In 1974, in North Wales, thousands of people experienced a violent earth tremor and lights were seen falling from the sky. Some ufologists believe a UFO crashed, and there's been a cover-up ever since of the Welsh Roswell.
Oh, a heck of a bang, yes. Oh, yes, it's like a tremor. It was in the house, shook the houses, really new houses.
And it seemed to come right on top of their head until the house was coming down.
There were lights coming from the top of the mountain, just up over there.
24th of January 1974 at 21:50 GMT. 5 bodies spectacularly incandescent were observed traversing the sky.
New information has been revealed that opens the mystery further. Named as one of the main witnesses in the Berwyn incident is Hugh Lloyd, then a 14-year-old farmer's son. Just after 8:30 p.m., Hugh's family felt the massive earth tremor. It was a frightening experience. Almost 40 years on, Hugh still remembers that day as if it were yesterday.
It was like this thud, and straight away the whole place started shaking very violently. The light flickered in the lights in the picture on television, snow on the screen. But we were all frightened. We didn't have a clue what it was. And Enoch said it must be an explosion, and then the phone started ringing. Hello? Like neighbours, phoning to ask, did you feel that? And then roughly about 20 minutes, there was a knock on the door. And there was a police officer there. And he said, we've had reports there's a plane crash that's come down on the Berwyn, and we'd like to commandeer your Land Rover to go up there. Me being 14, I said, well, Enoch, you better drive it. We carried on up the mountain about half a mile, maybe 3/4. We drove up the track and we stopped, got out and got torches, and it was very quiet and very dark, but nothing to be seen.
How are we going with the torch?
One of them said, there's nothing here. It's too quiet, we can't see anything. We might as well go down. So we turned back to the vehicles, and as we were approaching the vehicles, we saw this very bright white light. It's up the valley, just behind those trees there, up to the left in the valley between those two mountains. A very bright white light, coming up from the ground, pointing upwards. But it was, very, very bright. I knew it was coming from the ground, but we couldn't actually see the source of the light because it was, in the valley itself, being hidden. The light didn't look like a plane crash. It was too white for a fire. It didn't last for very long. 20 seconds at the most.
They searched the mountainside, but there was no sign of a crash. So what was the light? Ufologist Andy Roberts has researched the Berwyn UFO for years. Although a skeptic, he admits there is a central mystery to the incident involving another key witness.
In a village nearby called Llanderfel, there was a district nurse called Pat Evans. She felt the explosion there, and because she was a nurse and had all the medical equipment, thought, if a plane's crashed, I could get up there and give much-needed help until the emergency services arrived.
Pat Evans was with her 2 teenage daughters, 4 miles from Hugh Lloyd when the earth tremor hit.
So she picked up her 2 young daughters, got them in the car, drove the 10-15 minute drive up onto the B4391 road, expecting to see an aircraft crashed and in flames. This is the road that she was driving on, and it's a road that she knew very well, so she had no problems driving up here at night. And obviously she was out there looking for what she thought was going to be a plane disaster. And just as she came out from the other side of this copse of trees, she was absolutely astonished to see, far across the hills to the left, a huge ball of red, white, orange, pulsating light.
Whatever the object was, it was too far from the road to be reached on foot. Pat and her daughters watched, astounded at the ball of light, slowly pulsating and changing colour.
She described it as being half the size of the moon, and around this object were moving torchlights and vehicle lights. She realised that it clearly wasn't a crashed aircraft and that someone or some people were there attending to whatever it was, and realising that, she drove back home and went to bed, and to this day is completely mystified by what it was.
So what did Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd see that night? We reveal that even the arrival of the mysterious men in black couldn't provide all the answers. The unidentified sightings by Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd in Berwyn, Wales in 1974 have gone down in UFO folklore. The recently released MOD files have added even more mystery. Researchers from the British Geological Survey were quickly dispatched to Berwyn to investigate an earth tremor that had registered 3.5 on the Richter scale.
Immediately after the earthquake, we were getting a lot of reports, some of them rather complex ones about lights in the sky, lights on the hill. So I brought a small team of people down to ask the local people around here what they'd seen, what they'd heard, what they'd felt.
The British Geological Survey team have become known in Berwyn legend as the Men in Black, as they were dressed in dark suits, official-looking, and were going door to door.
Some people seem to think the whole event was rather suspicious and that we, simple scientists from the Geological Survey, had something to do with suspicious events around here.
Files containing Chris's notes recall his interview with nurse Pat Evans, who saw the unidentified light.
I have here the notes that I made when I talked to Pat Evans. She felt the shaking, but also she was very concerned about lights that she saw in the sky. She thought there was a big red light, like a glowing red fire. This is a copy of one of the maps that we, with our team, used when we were going around the area talking to people, and we were able, therefore, to put on the map exactly where we got that interview from, and therefore exactly what that person saw, heard and felt.
This British Geological Survey map, buried in the vaults, is a revelation. It shows the anomalous lights seen by Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd both appeared in the same small area of hillside at the same time. Ufologist Andy Roberts returns to the same spot on the mountainside where Pat and her daughter saw the UFO, and where Pat Evans told her story to Andy Roberts in 1998.
When I brought Pat Evans up onto this mountain road in 1998 and she told me her story then, I photographed her, and the photograph that I took showed her pointing to where she saw what she saw in 1974, and judging by this photograph, she was pointing over there, and which we know is where the police and farmers were searching that night.
Pat Evans was on the Llangannock to Welshpool Road, which is just beyond the forestry there. So if she was there, she probably saw the same lights as we saw. You know, because just dead in line. I'm sure, I'm nearly positive that's the same lights as she saw.
The recent files show the MOD's explanation for the sudden explosion and mysterious lights.
Subsequent search of the hillsides in question revealed no sign of impact, however. The Meteorological Office considered that these sightings could have been occasioned by a bolide, that is to say a meteor which enters the Earth's atmosphere and burns up before reaching the ground. A private investigation done on behalf of the British Astronomical Society concluded, however, that the meteor may in fact have disintegrated over Manchester and that its appearance was preceded at 8:30 p.m. by an earth tremor in the Berwyn Mountains with which it has no connection. So they were saying again, these are two things that happened coincidentally on the same night. You've got a meteor burning up in the atmosphere and also you've got an earth tremor.
So is this incredible coincidence, two separate natural phenomena, a meteor shower and an earthquake happening simultaneously, in itself a complete answer to the mystery? Many UFO believers think not. They believe the files fail to answer the big question, what was the source of light Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd saw on the ground?
So what Pat saw is an absolute mystery. I don't think it's a UFO for a minute, although it is an unidentified something. It appeared to be on the ground. If anything, it's an unidentified grounded object. But it's a mystery. So in and amongst all the hype about aliens and extraterrestrial crashing, in amongst the truth and the fact about earthquake and bolide meteors, what we have is a mysterious sighting of a stationary, large, glowing object on the ground for at least 10 minutes.
So is this case closed for Berwyn? There are still many unanswered questions.
The Berwyn Mountain incident is, I think in many people's minds, it's not case closed. Some people believe that the release of these files is itself disinformation and that the Ministry of Defence is still covering up some great secret truth about UFOs.
The MOD has agreed to release all the UFO files over time. But will all the secrets be revealed? It seems that the public is not ready to give up believing just yet. For some people, UFOs are with us for a long time to come. Well, until the real ones show up.
Some people suggest that this drip feeding of information to the public about UFOs is